Again, David Begnaud now joins us from Charlotte, near the scene of last night's protests. Again, as we mentioned, David, we do expect to hear both from police officials and members of Keith Scott's family later this morning. The family members, as we just heard in your piece, maintain that he was unarmed at the time of the shooting. It did lead to what we saw, some very disturbing images there in the piece. What's the mood like then this morning?
So the police are going to talk at the bottom of the hour. The family's going to talk in an hour, about 10:30 Eastern time. The mood is tense. You have members of the various communities here who are worried about what happened last night. On social media, you have people attacking the media for not reporting the facts properly. You have people who are attacking police officers. It's turned into an ugly situation. The bottom line here is we're simply reporting the facts as we know it now. The family says he had a book and no gun. The police say he had a handgun. And with that handgun, according to police, he got out of his vehicle with the gun, then got back in the vehicle, then got back out of the vehicle again with the gun, and that's when the officer opened fire. The officer who opened fire is a black officer. He's been on the police force for about 2 years, and he's on paid administrative leave. It's standard in situations like this.
However, unfortunate, too, a very familiar scene that we saw play out last night. We should also mention Charlotte's mayor has said that the community deserves answers, and obviously an investigation's underway. I know, though, that you were able to see what was left behind following last night's protest. Just how much damage was done?
Well, you know, it was interesting. I mean, when it started bubbling up after the shooting, I got to tell you, it was relatively peaceful, right? And then you have what police call agitators who moved into the situation, and it started to turn violent. We were in Atlanta last night covering gas prices that had risen because of the the gas pipeline that had started leaking in Alabama. And around 8 o'clock Eastern time last night, things started bubbling, and the next thing you know, there was a fire on the road near where the shooting happened. Then police moved in riot gear. Then there was tear gas. Then the protesters moved onto an interstate after midnight and set another fire. Then there was a Walmart that was vandalized. The protesters forced their way in, smashed through the front door, stole some electronics, and left. Were these protesters who were legitimately trying to protest what happened, or were they just troublemakers looking for a place to have their 15 minutes of fame? We don't know. But the bottom line was it was a chaotic and violent night. And look, it's important to note this. The man who died here was not the man who police initially were looking for when they went to serve that warrant. They had an outstanding warrant. They were looking for somebody. The man who died was not that guy. The reason he died, according to police, is because he had a weapon, and the police said this in the press release, Josh, and this is important. He posed an imminent danger to authorities. I got to tell you, I've covered a lot of officer-involved shootings, and immediately after such shootings, police are usually very reserved in what they say because they're cautious. Last night, almost immediately, they came out and said he had a weapon, he got out of the car with it, then he got back in with it, then he got back out again, and that's when they opened fire, believing they were in imminent danger. I say they. We're told it was one officer who opened fire. That officer who's been on the force about 2 years.
Again, as we mentioned, we do expect to hear from members then of Scott's family later today, as well as from police officials.
Right.
One might assume they will present verifiable evidence that, in fact, Scott was bearing a weapon at the time of the shooting. I know you'll be on top of it all for us. David Begnaud there in Charlotte. We appreciate it.